Wake Up India special. Well, Narayana Murthy delivered the opening address on leadership at the Business Today Mindrush Summit this past weekend.
I caught up with him on the sidelines of that event and asked him for his own leadership tips, advice for entrepreneurs and the qualities he'd like to see in the country's next Prime Minister. Hello and welcome to Wake Up India Exclusive. Today we have with us Mr. Narayana Murthy. He needs no introduction, the Executive Chairman of Infosys. We're going to be talking about leadership and lessons for young entrepreneurs as well. Mr. Murthy, thank you very much for speaking to Headlines today. You've been in the industry decades now. What is the learnings that you've taken out of the chief learnings of leading companies and leading the industry?
Basically, leadership is all about courage. It's all about courage of conviction. It's all about courage to do the right thing. It's all about courage to take tough, unpleasant decisions. It's all about values. It's all about meritocracy. It's all about choosing the right people to do the right thing. It's all about transparency. It's all about keeping the interest of the customers, the employees, the investors, and the society. So at the end of the day, I think it is about courage, values, and using them to do the right thing.
You mentioned earlier in one of your interviews to Business Today that one of the best advice you ever got, one of the pieces of best advice you got, was from a chemistry professor in school. Could you talk about how you've applied that advice?
Well, you know, when I was in my 10th grade, this teacher of mine was conducting a chemistry experiment, and he was being extremely careful with the amount of common salt that he used. We were very young, and even today it's somewhat amusing to me. One of my friends was sitting in the front bench with me. He burst out laughing, and the teacher got upset. He said, "Look, why did you do that?" And he was honest. He told him. And then the teacher said, "Young man, remember that this common salt belongs to the school. I have to treat it very carefully. I have to use it very carefully. I have to be very, very careful in how much I use. On the other hand, you come to my house, I'll give you a big jar full of common salt." So that taught us the importance of using the public resources with extreme care. I think that's very, very important. And all along at Infosys, every one of us has done that.
When you talk about public resources and the public commons, as they say, is that something that you notice as a deficit in India right now in terms of the leadership and their
Well, you know, there are a lot of good leaders in India. There is no doubt about it. There are very conscientious people who have treated public resources very carefully. But I think their number is perhaps not as many as you and I would like it to be. Therefore, there is a need for every one of our leaders to talk about the importance of using public resources very, very carefully, and not to blur the distinction between public resources and private resources, definitely.
Lots of young entrepreneurs out there right now, many of them coming back from abroad to try and use those resources here, but they are difficult times as well. What advice do you have for them starting businesses right now?
Well, even though the country is not doing well right now, this country offers enormous opportunities. There is no doubt about it. Wherever you look, you see opportunity. But the path is difficult. The activity is going to take a long time. So therefore, they need a lot of optimism. They need a lot of energy, a lot of patience. But in the end, I think they will be successful because the opportunity exists here.
Yep. Two final questions. One, you mentioned one part of leadership is taking tough decisions. Yes. Give us an example of a really tough decision you had to take and what weighed on your mind and how you went through it.
Well, you know, in 1995, we walked out of our relationship with GE. GE formed 25% of our revenue at that time, and we had gone public just a year and a half before. That was not an easy decision. When one customer forms 25% of your revenue and 8% of your bottom line, to walk out of such a relationship was not easy. Yeah. But we took that decision.
What weighed on your mind in terms of saying we have to do this?
Well, it said, look, the customer wanted us to accept lower prices. But then I realized that if we accepted lower prices for this customer, I'll have to accept lower prices for other customers too. If we accepted lower prices for every one of these customers, we will not be able to invest in technology, in providing better salaries for our people, in creating infrastructure for our growth, etc. Therefore, I said it is better that we don't do it, because we will not be fair to them. We will not be providing better and better quality of service. So I said it's better to walk out at this stage.
And a final question, we're coming up to an election. I know that you will not talk about who your preferred candidate is, but what would you like to see in terms of political leadership from 2014 onwards?
I want a leader who is very courageous. I want a leader who will take tough and quick decisions. I want a leader who understands that the only way you can solve the problem of poverty in India is by creating more and more jobs with good disposable income. Therefore, whoever the leader is, he or she will have to reduce friction to business. He or she will have to do everything possible to ensure that our GDP grows at 9–10% and collect more and more taxes, and he or she will have to use those taxes very efficiently to make the life of the poor better by providing access to basic education, basic health care, nutrition and shelter.
Mr. Murthy, I'm sure you hear this all the time, but thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.